You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I am obsessed with Game of Thrones, to the point that I drove around to 3 different stores looking for Game of Thrones Oreos. And my latest jam has been the theme song, when that beat drops, right? And so I brought one of my friends who's also obsessed. Hi, Haley.
Hi.
So how long have you been obsessed with Game of Thrones?
So I got into Game of Thrones during my undergrad. So probably like 2015. I want to say like I started binging the first like 4 seasons, and then I started watching season 5 live.
Ooh.
So yeah, it was really great. I'm in grad school now, so it's been a really great way to like actually keep in touch with my friends from undergrad. That like we were all obsessed. So we would like have the watch parties and everything. And now in grad school is a great way to bond with new people over the show. So
yeah, Game of Thrones definitely brings friends together. And I have to say that I had the opposite experience of you. I was watching it live for seasons 1 through 4. And then I didn't have HBO, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just watch it later. And so knowing that the final season was going to come out on March 15th of this year, I was like, I'm just going to rewatch the whole thing. And I've had it done for like a week. So I had it done in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I watched all 7 seasons.
Yeah. I'm excited.
Obsessed again.
Right. I have 2 sets of Game of Thrones socks. So I've got every single house sigil on like short socks and long socks and all the socks.
Nothing since Game of Thrones like a good set of socks.
Right.
I don't have too much Game of Thrones stuff now. I don't have the Oreos. I'm really disappointed. I bought Oreos today, but I don't have the Game of Thrones one. Apparently they're only at Target or at Amazon. So I'm going to order Amazon Oreos, and then I'll have them here, like Amazon Prime them for
the premiere.
Because there's nothing like Oreos that says Game of Thrones.
Right. If you want to up it even more, there's Game of Thrones wine that I've discovered.
Wine and cookies.
Right?
Delicious.
Perfect. All Game of Thrones themed. So.
Well, and the thing about it is, I would think that Game of Thrones would have ale and then like beef.
Yeah, right.
I don't want beef flavored Oreos. I would like to be clear on that. So yes, Haley had the wonderful idea because she and I are Twitter friends, and I live tweeted the Game of Thrones watching, and she was like, you should do an episode of Best Forevers about friendships in Game of Thrones, and I was like, you're a genius. And so here we are. Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I've really sort of dedicated to all sorts of friendships and understanding friendships in different ways, and Game of Thrones just provides another venue to do that through the media. And so, however, I know there's probably people who are listening who are either A, I've never seen Game of Thrones, or B, I've seen it, and there's no way that friendship is in this show at all. And my first thought is, okay, A, if you haven't seen it, we're going to give you the most basic rundown of the show ever, and then maybe you'll want to watch the show based on our discussion. Or at least be hip and cool and be able to talk to your friends and people you work with.
Right.
Here's the thing, everyone's going to be talking about Game of Thrones
for
the next, 7 weeks?
Yeah.
Because I think there's 6 episodes, and then there's a movie that's coming out on HBO after. So that's at least 7 weeks of nothing but Game of Thrones, and shit's gonna go down, I have a feeling.
It really is. It's gonna take me a while to get over, I think, up to the very end.
Yes, and we'll end with what we both think is gonna happen.
I'm about to think about it. I'm about to take the whole time to think about that.
Just have it in the back of your head. But so a couple things before we get started. One, we are going to do the most basic background on Game of Thrones ever. And so don't at me or Haley about about the thoroughness of the discussion, because, there's no way that you can explain all of Game of Thrones and talk about their friendships in one episode. Like, it's impossible. No. Like, they have 7 seasons, and I'm still like, what's this about? No, just kidding. I love it. I'm obsessed. But, yeah, there's just no way that's going to happen. Number 2, or B, I don't remember what sort of organizational system I was using, if it was numbers or letters, but whatever, is that there's going to probably be some spoilers. So if you're saving season 7 and then watching season 8 at a later time, then you might say, I'm going to stop and I'll come back to this episode after I've watched the entire thing. Now, obviously, we haven't seen season 8, right? It's not released. So this is seasons 1 through 7. There might be spoilers. Okay. Oh, and then the last thing, either C or 3, depending again on that system. There are a lot of people and a lot of places and a lot of things and a lot of situations. So if we get like a name wrong, it's by accident. And we've actually met. This is usually I don't spend this much time preparing for an episode that might be an interview or a discussion, but we actually got together to talk about all this so that we could look up people's names and talk about all the different types of friendships that we wanted to talk about. So we have prepared, but that doesn't mean I'll probably pronounce everything correctly.
Same.
Yeah. Well, you do pretty good. Like,
I've been in it, though. I've been doing my rewatch, and so
I just rewatched the whole thing, too.
7 hours yesterday, and...
Oh, a girl after my own heart.
If
7
my
hours.
professors or boss are listening, please, I promise I'm still doing my work, too.
Hey, it was Friday, whatever.
True.
They can't tell you what to do outside of work. Can they? No. You're like, well, I like to keep my job. So.
Trying to graduate in a month, so
yeah.
gotta get those final assignments in, but...
Yeah, well then, just tell them to listen to it after they've graded all your stuff.
Right, true.
And you really do have to have something that you're doing besides work.
Yeah.
And for me, TV and podcasts are a lot of what I do outside of work, so you do you is what I say. Okay, so this is the main question, the big thing. How would you explain Game of Thrones to someone who hasn't watched it to get a basic idea of what the fresh hell is happening?
Right. So I think it's important first to say, like, this is, and at least from what I know from the book that I've read and then the show, is that it's really sets in its own, like, place and time. Like, it's not, like, way back when, or it's not in the future. It's just, like, its own, like, realm outside of anything we know. To me, it's very familiar to, like, Lord of the Rings as far as, like, that universe and the things you would expect there, and, like, castles and knights and ladies and mythical creatures. So, but really it's this, like, political... battle to get to the Iron Throne. So all these different houses are competing against one another and forging alliances, and there's betrayal and incest and all these
sorts of things.
Lots of things that lead to the Iron Throne. But that while everyone's so focused in Westeros, which is the realm, up north, there's the wall, so protecting from, like, the outside, what goes beyond that kingdom in the realm. There are these White
snow
Walkers.
zombies.
Yeah, snow
is what I
zombies, essentially, called the White Walkers, and they raise the dead and create these, like, ice zombies, essentially, that are coming down onto the south, and going to be coming up against that wall. And so there's really this big battle that's going to be looming of, while everyone's so focused on their own political agenda, everyone really needs to unite against this, like, force of creatures that are kind of just the impending doom of winter. And
winter is always coming on the show.
Always coming.
I think every character on that show at some point has said winter is coming. And then I've watched so many seasons, I was like, does it ever come?
Right.
When does winter come? And then I was like, oh shit, it's coming. And The Walking Dead is one of my favorite shows. And then I was watching Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh my God, like, life really does come down to the most basic thing, and that is a zombie apocalypse.
Really?
And it doesn't matter who we are, where we come from, what kind of money, any of that kind of stuff, that we all have to come together to fight the zombies. Are you going to die?
Right.
Like, it reminds me of Ghost when Whoopi Goldberg's character. You in danger, girl.
Yeah.
This entire realm is in danger, and it's the snow zombies, as I like to call them.
Yep.
But their real name, or their official name, is White Walkers. I'm sure there's other names too, but that's how they're most often referred to. Or the undead.
Yeah, and the Night King is, like, over all of it, so his, like, face is, like, the poster of the upcoming season. So
yeah, he's just like, bitches, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And so I think you just did a really awesome job talking about that. And the only thing I would add to it is that you have the entire realm, and you think of it like the north is the winter part, the south is a little bit, like, warmer, like, as you might imagine in the world, like, if you're applying this realm to your life, right? So it's like north, it's like It's like Michigan, Canada,
We're at the wall.
We're at the wall. Exactly. And then the South is probably more like Texas, Mexico, maybe even further south, right? And so I think that is something to consider, and that there are these 7 houses, specifically. Hi, Ferguson. He's here because he just watched it and he has so many thoughts about the show and their friendships. So you have the 7 kingdoms, and, it is very political, and this idea of, like, everyone trying to win the kingdom, but they have to make allies, and because they're humans, or at least I think they are, because it's like Lord of the Rings, you're like, well, are they a hobbit, or a dwarf, or an elf, but the humans here they're all trying to sort of win this power, or try to lead the world. And so there is a lot of politics, but because they're humans, as I was getting at, is that they all have to make some sort of friendships or connections to make these things happen. And so me and Haley were talking about, well, how does friendship actually work in the Game of Thrones realm? And I think that is something that's really interesting. And sort of what we came up with was sort of 3 different categories. We came up with loyalty. So loyalty is something that you see throughout the show and throughout many characters. And that is one of the primary qualities of friendship, is that you want someone who's loyal to you. It's going to keep your confidences, like keep your secrets, and be there for you whenever or whoever might be trying to take over your castle. So to speak.
Yeah.
We might not all have castles, but we might have homes and apartments, and same idea, right? The second one is allies, or those forced friendships or forced connections, or ones that are negotiated through, as you're talking about, like political power, and that they might need allies, and houses might need to join together to be able to fight another house as they're trying to get over the Iron Throne, and then they all have to sort of work together against the snow zombies, right?
Yes. All comes down to the snow zombies.
It does. I'm like, at basic level, it's like, are any of us going to survive an apocalypse? I don't know. And then the third one, which might be more reflective of what people are thinking of when it comes to Game of Thrones, and that is toxic friendships. People who fake being friends, and then they just stab you in the back, or they just cut off your head, or get a dragon to burn down your entire...
Or poison. That's a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah, poison. You're right. Or just, like, all-out knife battle, swords. I'm thinking of the Red Wedding.
Yeah, like head squishing, R.I.P. Oberyn Martell.
Torture.
Yep.
Can't forget Ramsay Bolton.
No.
So there's lots of things that are going on, that, we have true friendships, we have forced friendships, and then we have friendships that are just absolutely horrific and create the terror of the realm. So what we thought of were like different types of relationships that would go in each of these. And so we're going to talk through them. And again, there might be spoilers. Again, there's lots of characters. The important thing is knowing that they come from different houses, or they might be in the same house, or they might be enemies, they might be frenemies, they might be on people's kill list. Like, there's all sorts of things that can happen here, because in Game of Thrones, it ain't no joke.
Nope.
So the first group we're going to talk about is types of friendships is loyalty. And so we sort of broke this down by likely friendships, friendships across the caste system, and then unlikely friendships. So these are friendships that are true. They're very rare. And so the first couple are actually ones that you suggested, Haley. Do you want to talk a little bit about Arya and some of her friends?
Yes. So Arya doesn't have many friendships throughout the show, because, if you think about her journey, she's going from season 1 of being in the Capitol and being really pissed about it, because she's not a lady. She doesn't want that. She wants to fight.
Damn straight.
She wants to do her own thing, and then she just raises up into like this trained assassin, essentially.
Hell yeah.
So she's great. Love her. Definitely my top 5, but some of her friendships, they're very rare, but at the very beginning of the show, Micah, the butcher's boy, was one of her first friends, and the Lannisters ended up killing the butcher's boy, because there was an altercation between Micah and Joffrey. Hate him.
He's the worst. Well, he's second
worst.
to the worst.
Second to the worst. I agree with that, for sure.
And he was my worst until I watched season 5 through 7.
Oh, Ramsay.
Ramsay Bolton wins.
Can't wait to get into that one.
Yeah.
Arya is loyal to Micah, and really that his death motivates her first, like her hit list that she creates of all the people that she wants to avenge and then get revenge on by killing all these people on her hit list. Then later in the series, she makes a friend with Hot Pie. So they love Hot Pie. So they were kind of on the road together. They were going to be going to Castle Black, but then all the twists and turns that happen in this journey. So eventually they part ways, but I thought it was interesting because there was a lot of parallels between the two friendships for Arya, of these two boys who, talk about crossing the casts, like they were raised up as a baker's son and a butcher's son, and then she's raised up as this little lady. Yeah. She's highborn, but that doesn't matter to her, and she still builds those friendships because the caste doesn't really matter to her, and then she's fiercely loyal to both of them. So avenging Micah, and then eventually seeing Hot Pie again later, and like I think season 7. They reunite. So
and what's really great about Hot Pie is that he literally makes pies.
Yes. When he makes her, one of my favorite moments between them was whenever he made her a direwolf, like I think it was like a bread or something like that, like a pastry. And she's like leaving, and when they part ways, she was like, "It's really good." Yeah, so cute.
Well, it's like to have sort of these like true good moments is very rare on the show.
Very rare.
And I think it's like if you thought there was going to be a happy ending, you weren't paying attention, is one of the quotes from the show.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is important about those friendships with Arya is that she grows up in Winterfell, which is in the north. Ferguson is literally staring at Haley.
We're great friends.
He's like the mini direwolf for this episode. Come here, Ferguson. He said, "I'm House Stark, and I'm still mad that everyone died that has died." But she grew up in Winterfell, which is in the north, and her father, Ned Stark, one of the greatest characters of all time, played by Sean Bean. But she grows up with several brothers and then a sister who's really into being a lady, and so sewing and doing all sorts of crafting things like that, and just being a lady, which apparently is sitting around in dresses, is what I gather.
Yes,
and
very much so, and getting married.
And getting married. And so one of the things is, it's like Arya doesn't want the same life as Sansa. She doesn't see that as important. And growing up with all these brothers who are learning how to do sword fights, that's what she wants to do. And so when they're heading to King's Landing, because Ned is going to be the king of the hand for the... it's the Lannisters, but who's the king? Baratheon. I always say that one wrong.
Robert. Good old Robert.
So he's going to be the king of the King's Hand, and so they're traveling, and I think was it actually after they got there, and when the thing happens with Joffrey, I think
it was on the King's Road, like as they're traveling to King's Landing.
Yeah, so she's doing sword fighting with Micah, and then Joffrey comes up and is being Joffrey, which is like just the worst, like a complete dickhead. And he's
such a little shit.
Yeah, he's a little shit. He's probably 13, if that.
Yeah.
He's like a tween that is entitled and just he's in the richest area of the world, and like he's gonna be the upcoming king whenever that might happen, and he's the king's son now, and he's just the worst. And so Sansa is being brought to be married to him, and so I think he's like trying to show off. And so then actually Arya gets at Joffrey, and so to not say that he got his ass whooped by a girl, he's basically like, the butcher's son did this, and so then Micah got killed.
Yeah.
First spoiler alert.
First one. Very minor.
But like,
prepare yourselves.
But I think that it's not minor to Arya.
Right.
And I think that's the point, is that her loyalty, it's her first friend. She grew up in a house where it was like your friends were your siblings.
Right.
And I don't know, because she was so much younger, if any of them saw her as friend-like, where you can see the older boys sort of have a brotherhood or, you know, those sorts of things, or really close to their dad. And I don't think she has that. And so Micah is her first friend, and that really does sort of, she starts the list of the people she's going to kill, and Joffrey is the first name.
Yeah.
And don't worry,
it should be.
Yeah, and the whole crowd at home is like, thank you.
Yes.
But I think that is, it's important, even though minor maybe in the story, it's important to her storyline.
Right. Well, and really a coming of age moment for her as well, like realizing like, oh, this is death, this is fighting, this is what it really looks like, where I'm going, and kind of like a point of no return too, of I'm leaving my home, my friend just died, and like this is the reality.
It makes me sad.
I know.
Oh, but speaking of brotherhood, the other most likely friendship I think that we see in the show is, as Haley was talking about, we have this wall that separates the world and that is beyond it. Again, snow zombies. And maybe other things that we don't know about yet. But I believe it was like hundreds of years before the show started, or within a certain amount of time before the show starts, because of a previous battle with the White Walkers, the wall goes up, and it's this huge wall that blocks one side to the other, and you have the Night's Watch, which are men who agree to be a part of this brotherhood to protect everyone below the wall. Right, so they are keeping the White Walkers away from everyone. And so what you see is that any of the men who become part of the Night's Watch, they don't get married. Nope. They pledge not to have children.
Yep.
And I'm sure there are some other rules.
And, like, it's for life. Like, you can't leave.
Oh. Well, shit.
Yeah. You're in it.
You're in it to win it or not, depending on what happens to said wall. Because last episode I watched, that baby went down.
Yeah.
By a snow dragon.
Things get weird.
Things get real weird. But I think that you see in the Night's Watch, you have Jon Snow, who's the quote-unquote bastard child of Ned Stark from Winterfell, Arya's half-brother, Sansa's and the other boys and that sort of thing. And so, well, let me just sidebar this. Where's Jon Snow in your top 5 or top 10?
He's in...
Is he not even in your top 10?
No, he's in my top 10, for sure. I just don't know if he's in my top 5 or not.
I think he's in my top 5.
Really?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll think about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about that at the end. Favorite characters and what we think is going to happen. Yes. Okay. But Jon Snow is sort of this bastard child, and he is committed himself to the Night's Watch like his uncle, and so off he goes and he meets Sam. And him and Sam have probably the realest friendship on this entire show, because they are literally about watching each other's back and taking care of each other and that sort of thing. What do you think of their friendship?
I would agree that they just have a very pure friendship, and it's not motivated by like any political like relationship. It's not leveraged in any way. It's just like, I care about you and you're my brother. And like the brotherhood is interesting too, because it's almost like you are pledging to be friends with one another and to have each other's backs, but at the same time we know like they betray one another and end up betraying John.
They kill
him and
he's not dead.
He's not, so don't worry,
he comes back.
But Sam and like they play, and really John saves Sam in a lot of ways in the beginning, and he defends him and accepts him and gets everyone else to accept Sam as well, because Sam is not who you would expect to be at the Night's Watch. But how folks get up there too is like, you know, you're a reject by society. Like either you were arrested and you either were going to be executed, or you elect to go to the Night's Watch, or you were unwanted by your family, or you had just like, you're down on your luck and there's no other opportunity for you, so I'm going to go to the Night's Watch.
What a bunch of misfits, right? It's like an interesting group, because you have criminals and you have people who elect to go, like John, I think are just good people and want to help other people. Like they're the people who sign up to go into the military to protect all of us, right? That they'll go to war and those sort of things, and it's completely altruistic. And I mean, I think there's people that are like, I want to go into the military because I get a gun, and maybe here it's like I get a sword because they don't have guns yet, right? But I think that, and then you have people who are rejected, so it's almost like they're trying to find a group in which they can feel included. And I think that's a lot of times where you might see people come together as friends, is that they have a common goal, and it's all to be included in some way, right? Either for good or they have nowhere else to go. And so they create this brotherhood. But because there's still some, because humans are humans, that, yeah, you have some betrayals, but within that brotherhood of the Night's Watch, you have Sam and John. And I think John has, and this is why he's one of my favorite characters, like, he truly feels like he is a good person, and that is really hard to find in this realm. Like, I think he's probably one of the best people on the show. We can debate that later, or people can at me on Twitter, but he truly feels like he's doing this for the greater good.
True.
And not necessarily for his own agenda and that sort of thing. And so he immediately goes in, but they kind of treat him like shit because he is a bastard, right?
Right.
And they know that because everyone from that area, which I learned recently, they all have different names, but depending on what area they live in, that they have, so that people know that they're bastards. So anyone with the last name Snow in the north, sorry, you're a bastard. So I think they mistreat him, but he is someone they should accept because he's so good at what he does. Like, being able to protect people, sword fighting, all those kinds of things, and it's like they don't want to accept him. And then you see him sort of seeing that Sam is being rejected, and sort of, as you said, Sam doesn't seem like someone who'd be in the Night Watch, and he's like bigger, like what they might consider as overweight or dumpy, maybe not very smart. I don't necessarily agree with any of those things, but I think they don't see him as someone who is strong. I think they see him as a coward. And maybe he was a little bit at the beginning, but I think he needed someone to believe in him. And I think later when he goes home, you can see that no one really believed in him at home.
Yeah.
And so he is sort of that reject that ended up going to the Night's Watch. And he, I think by being accepted by John and John protecting him, brought a lot of good things out of him.
Yeah.
And then later, I think, because you say, like, John kind of saved him, I think there's a lot of ways in which Sam helps him as well. So it isn't like a one-sided friendship. And so that's why I would say this is, like, the truest friendship on the show.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And we were already talking a little bit about Arya in terms of going across caste. So I think there are a lot of real friendships that we see in the show that kind of go across, people who are in power positions or in, what did you call Arya? Highborn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That terminology, yeah, I think is great. And so you mentioned Dany, who is, I can never say her full name correctly.
Daenerys Targaryen. Her full title is like, I feel like a whole paragraph.
Breakers of Chains, Mother of Dragons. She goes on for like 20 minutes every time, and then it's like someone will be like, cool. But yes, but she is the Mother of Dragons. She has dragons.
3 of them. Well, 2.
One of them went to be a snow dragon.
Right.
It was so sad. I felt like, when people, because here's the other thing. We didn't even talk about this beforehand, but talking about like people's connection with animals.
Yes.
Right.
Ooh,
like,
that's a
so
good one.
the Stark house, they have direwolves, and I think those are giant creatures that protect them, but like they have a loving relationship with the one that protects them.
Yeah.
And then you have this lady who treats those dragons like her children in a lot of ways.
Well,
like,
after losing her baby,
they become
her children.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So she is, that's the other thing, Khaleesi. Like, so
Khaleesi.
she has so many names, right? But her husband dies and her child dies, and then she becomes sort of a ruler that, quote unquote, breaks chains, and they go around taking over places where their people are enslaved, and the people choose not to be enslaved but to fight for her.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like they're doing the same thing, but she says that they're free. And so she has a lady that is sort of like, because of her position, they have people who sort of take care of them. And what's her name again? Missandei. Yeah, tell me what you think of their friendship.
So Missandei really starts out kind of as a translator, but she herself was enslaved.
Yes. Yeah.
But then joins Daenerys, and I think that Daenerys doesn't really, we talked about this, but doesn't really believe in the caste, or she's her whole really coming into her being a queen was built on breaking chains and setting all these enslaved people free. So doesn't really ascribe to that caste system, but she has people who rally behind her and believe in her. So I think that's what makes these crossing the caste relationships so much more pure and loyal. So Missandei is sort of the right-hand woman to Daenerys. And so it's just kind of interesting to see how their relationship grows and evolves, and she really listens and seeks counsel from her.
Yeah.
And
I think that what we see is at most, like, literally it's right-hand man. Like, it's usually men in those positions. And she even has counsel that are men. But I feel like this is one of the women on the show that is truly respected for her point of view, even though she doesn't understand a lot of things because she has been enslaved. And there's sort of this time later when Tyrion, I called him his dad's name, no offense, but he is a Lannister, but he is a reject from his family because he was born as a little person. And I mean, that's the language we use now, but that's definitely not the language they used then. They call him the imp, they call him a dwarf. Yeah, other things like that. And they accuse him of, spoiler alert, killing Joffrey with some poison at what I like to call, and I think other people call it the purple wedding.
Yeah.
Because purple in the face,
I love that.
bro. And I have to say, I don't like to see people in pain, but Joffrey really was the worst. So it's like, bye.
Well, it was like episode 4 of that season, or 3 or 4, and you didn't expect that.
Yeah, it just happened real fast. And Haley mentioned she read the first book. I've never read the books. And so we are basing this primarily on the show.
Yeah.
And so some people will be like, well, I knew that was coming. And I'll be like, I didn't know any of the weddings are coming. And from what I can tell is that either people are forced into marriage or someone dies at a wedding. So weddings don't seem like a happy occasion.
No. Not at all.
Not at all. And so, oh gosh, what was I saying? What was my point?
Daenerys and Tyrion.
Tyrion. Oh, yes, thank you. So Tyrion is talking to sort of like Grey Worm, who's like one of her soldiers, and to Missandei. And it's like they don't understand some of the things like playing a game or doing these sorts of things because they've been enslaved. And so it's like, even though she might not understand everything that's going on, she does understand a lot of things in this political, quote unquote, Game of the Thrones, right? And so I really respect that Dany doesn't really abide by those sort of like tiers or hierarchy and that sort of thing. But I mean, let's be real, she still wants you to bend the knee to her as a queen.
Oh, yeah.
But that is for her to rule the realm, but she is very protective of the people who counsel her. And if they betray her, they're out. Right?
Yeah.
And that did happen with one person who is in love with her unrequited love.
Yeah.
Sad. I'm making
Jorah.
tears.
Poor Jorah.
I'm making tear things down my face. But yeah, no, I think that is a really neat friendship. You also mentioned Bronn and Jaime. Do you want to talk a little bit about them? I think you said Bronn was one of your favorite characters.
I love Bronn. He's in my top 10 for sure. Hope he gets his castle eventually. But he and Jaime, so Bronn, and it's interesting too because Bronn really starts out being loyal and devoted to Tyrion, Jaime's brother.
Yeah.
And then, once Tyrion leaves, and that's kind of when Bronn and Jaime's friendship really starts to develop, and they go to Dorne to save Jaime's niece, aka daughter, actually.
Oh yeah, there's the incest part.
There's the incest.
Yikes.
Number one. So they go to Dorne, and that's when they really Bronn is devoted to Jaime, and Jaime is devoted to Bronn, and has the opportunity to make sure that they save him once he's captured in Dorne. And so even up until the most recent season, they're battling together side by side. So not something that you would expect because Bronn is someone who kind of came up from the bottom of the cast and was really pulled up by Tyrion. And then I think it says a lot about Jaime's character because Jaime is like the knight of the realm. Like he is the Kingslayer. He's great. Yeah. We love Jaime.
And when he got a haircut, I'll just sidebar it. The guy is very handsome. I think that is the actor, but I think that's also the part. He's supposed to be the golden boy. He is the football quarterback, popular kid, that sort of thing. Like, in this realm, that's who he is. Like, people look up to him. Ladies and men love him,
right.
you know, so I think he does a really great job in that role.
He does. He really does. So it's cool to see him. And we talked about this too, but the character arc of a lot of these characters, like, there's so much development that occurs over the show, but I would say he has one of the strongest character developments of anyone. So really kind of getting out of that mentality of, you know, being just an asshole in the first season and pushing Bran off the top tower to really caring about people. And whether it's, you know, his relationship with Brienne or with Bronn, just like these people that don't really fall in his class, but still being devoted to them and protecting them.
Yeah, it's like if we go sort of with the high school sort of metaphor or application, it's like these are people he would never give the time of day to. And Bronn is sort of like he doesn't see him as ever being as handsome as Jaime or getting any of the ladies like Jaime does, but there is this level of the funny sidekick.
Yeah.
I think Bronn provides a lot of comic relief.
He does.
But I also see, like, he does seem like someone who would be popular. Again, we're going with that sort of idea, but it's like he'll never be as popular as Jaime. And so it's whether or not he can accept that their relationship really works. And it does, but I also think, like you said, Jaime has changed for the better through these relationships he has with people he wouldn't normally have. Because I think that the Lannister family is probably one of the richest, and like Joffrey, as I was mentioning, they're entitled, they have a lot of power. And off mic, Haley and I talked about, they're just the kind of people who have no connection with other people. They just sit in their high tower, drinking their wine and talking shit about other people and having power and money and things like that, and the awful things they can do to each other, and not really thinking about how other people live life. And I think it's by Jaime interacting with Bronn and then Brienne that I think is most important. That leads us to their friendship. And so she is one of my favorite characters.
Yes, top 5.
She is a knight that is sort of a reject knight.
Yeah. So she talked a little bit about her background in one of the episodes, and her father taught her how to fight, and she always did want to be a knight, but wasn't really accepted in that way. But she just kind of kept going for it. And then finally, so Renly Baratheon, they grew up together, and so he stood up for her whenever everyone else was like knocking her down, and so she remained loyal and devoted to him and became his knight. So she was able to step into that role, even though that's not what would be accepted by society and not accepted for what you would imagine as like the male knighthood. So to see Brienne kind of grow in that, and her relationship is developing. Really, she has a lot of different relationships over the show, but Jaime being one of them, her loyalty to Catelyn Stark, and really just no matter what other people say, sticking to that knighthood because she does. She is fiercely loyal to people.
Well, and when her king, spoiler alert, is murdered. I don't know why I keep saying that, like, it's already like, girl, we're past that. But when her king is murdered, Catelyn Stark, she sort of becomes loyal to her, and they capture Jaime Lannister, and Brienne is taking him back to King's Landing, and the idea is that she can free her daughters, who are Arya and Sansa is supposed to get married to just a stain of a human being.
The worst kind of human.
The garbage can of human beings as a tween.
Yes.
And I was saying this to Haley, that Joffrey Sansa has a crush on him. Like, he's in the tiger beat of the realm, you know, like she's got posters of him on the wall and stuff like that. Like, she's sort of like obsessed with him. Like, people might be with like a boy band, but he is truly the worst. And then she soon realizes that her life is going to be full of torture, and the person who's going to be her husband cuts off her dad's head. Like, so it's like, how can she can't deal with him. No one can, but he's the worst. How many times can I say this? Should that be the name of the episode? He's the worst. Wait, this is supposed to be about friendship. But I think that Brienne is loyal to Catelyn Stark, and so she's going to free the girls, and she has said that she will protect her daughters, and she does so through the entire show, right, where she's looking for Arya and Sansa and doing whatever she can to protect them. But in their journey back from where he's been captured, like, he is essentially a prisoner to her.
Yeah.
That he is just Jaime Lannister is just this awful person, right? Who's having sex with a sister and has 3 children by his sister, and just the Kingslayer, and everyone, he's just so entitled to everything. And I think he really starts to learn that it's almost like she proves to him that he should respect her.
Yeah.
Because he's the Kingslayer, and she holds her own as a sword fighter. And so I think that is something, is that maybe no one should have to prove themselves to other people, but I think for him, seeing that as someone who's so entitled, starts to realize that there are other people that exist besides him, and that that really starts to develop a different kind of relationship between the two of them.
And when they met, I feel like that's when his character turn kind of happened, and when that development started, because we have him captured, and like, even if you begin to feel sorry for him, he literally kills like his cousin, and like, as he's trapped at the Stark camp. Yeah. But then on that journey back, I at least for myself, as I was watching it as a viewer, like, I began to appreciate Jaime. Yeah. And then he only gets better from there. And then you start rooting for him. Yeah. Going literally from hating him to him being a great character.
Yeah, and one of my final tweets when I was watching the show is, can I have Jon Snow and Jaime Lannister win? Can they have, like, twin, like, thrones?
Jaime would make a great Hand of the King.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. So, and then Jon Snow can be the king.
Predictions.
Probably not. Okay. So I think that one of the things that really helps with their friendship across the cast is that he respects her, and I don't think he ever respected anyone below him. No. You know what I mean? And so I think that also then lends to him having that friendship with Bronn, right? Yeah. So then under loyalty, yes, we're still under loyalty. Oh, goodness. It goes fast on the other ones because they're so awful. Right. But we have sort of unlikely friendships, ones that you might not imagine people having. And the first, since we're talking about Brienne, should we talk about her and Podrick?
Yes, I love Pod. Pod's up there for me.
Yeah, he's Pod. Great. And his little outfit, that it's not the way I should say it, like his... I don't know. I like his gear, like his protective. What do they call it?
It's like a sheath. Right?
Yeah. Whatever it is. His is cool. I was like, oh, yeah. So he's a squire and she's a knight. And he was actually the squire for Tyrion. And then Tyrion is off to Dragonland. And so, actually, Podrick leaves thinking that Tyrion's about to be murdered for the death of Joffrey, but Tyrion has other things in mind, and so do some other people. And that's the other thing about Jaime Lannister. You can start to see him respecting his brother more. Yes. And so building...
protects him.
And I think I call those sibling ships. So yes. They're really developing a friendship there. But so Podrick thinks that Tyrion is going to die. And so when they sort of see each other later, that's cool. Yeah. But yeah, so Brienne and Podrick go off together. Is that when they go off to find Arya and Sansa?
Yes. Yeah. And so Podrick, it's like one of those great humor characters, the comic relief of the show. But he was a squire to Tyrion, and so they really fit that squire knight relationship, but in like the unexpected way. We talked a lot about Brienne not really being your typical knight. Well, Podrick's not really your typical squire either. And they talk about that too. And so they really pour into each other a lot. And really, as Brienne's kind of at her darkest moments of both Sansa and Arya rejecting her, whenever she worked
tries
so
to
hard to find them. And I think Pod kind of keeps her on track and keeps her focused. And so I think that she really needed him just as much as he needed her.
Well, I think it's interesting because it's like he doesn't know how to really ride a horse. He doesn't really know how to use a sword. He really doesn't know how to eat off the land. He doesn't know. And she knows all these things. But then the entire time, like, he's doing whatever he can to help her and respect her. And he's like, I'm the squire, you're the knight. And she's like, I'm not a knight, I'm not these things. And then I think she starts to let him do his role. and he lets her do her role. And so I think it ends up working together. But yeah, you wouldn't expect them to build a relationship. And I feel like she sees him as like an annoying little brother.
Yeah. She does.
Like, he just can't do anything right. It's like, come on, get it together. Mom, do I really have to play with him? But I think they start to, they're out there for so long together.
Yeah.
And, like, he's going to do whatever he can for her. And she, I think, is the poster child for loyalty of this show. She has never wavered on her king, on Catelyn Stark, even though she's been dead for however many seasons, protecting Sansa and Arya, even though they've rejected her, that she's going to continue to look for them and do whatever she can for them. I mean, she truly is someone who does not violate the rules or the norms of loyalty. And some people might be like, well, that's boring, or this, that, or the other thing, but it truly is. It's something that we need in life. We need more people like her.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And I think Podrick, even though she might have some sides of her that don't go too well, or she just gets irritated with him, that he sort of brings the friendship out of her too. And so I think that starts to lead us in, like, I think we started with likely friendships, and then friendships across the cast, and then we have one more unlikely friendship. And that is fan favorite Hodor. Bran Stark, the youngest of the Stark family, who, as Haley mentioned, was climbing up a tower, saw Cersei and Jaime Lannister, who were brother and sister, having sex, and they sort of freak out on Bran, and Jaime pushes him off the tower, and Bran is paralyzed
from the waist down.
And so one of the things that I think is really interesting with Bran's character is that because of that, in that time, there isn't a lot of ways to help him, right?
Right.
There isn't, let's just say it's more of an able-bodied world, right? Like, it's not, and so there is a level of dedication to him, and Hodor, I think, is someone who does it. He carries him, he protects him, he does whatever Bran needs. And then there's also, is it Asha?
Asha.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about her, because you brought up this friendship. Yeah. I had Hodor and Bran, but I forgot about her. So.
Well, Asha actually tried to kill Bran, and she is a wildling, so she's
maybe that's why I didn't think of it right away.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, definitely unlikely.
Yeah.
But so she was raised north of the Wall, and so she comes to the Stark territory and makes an attempt on Bran's life, and then was captured and kept at Winterfell. And then eventually, as whenever Theon takes Winterfell and Hodor and Bran need to go north of the Wall, Asha goes with them, and they need her to help protect them. That's her territory. Like, she knows how to navigate that. And then she has this turn as well of protecting Bran and gonna do anything for Bran and Hodor. So them, and then also Rickon, but he's little, and so it doesn't really, we didn't really talk about him much, but they all, just this little group, makes their way in like the most dangerous, I would argue, part of the realm, and take care of each other.
Oh wait, Bran isn't the youngest; he's the second to the youngest, isn't he?
Yep, Rickon's the little
because he.
One. Yeah.
Well, Ramsay Bolton, goddamn you!
But
the
also,
Joffrey
Rickon, like, could have, dodged this straight line, one target. He could have run zigzag or something. Yeah, but
he was getting arrow shot at him by Ramsay Bolton, who is basically what Joffrey would be if he grew up to be past high school age. So Joffrey's just Ramsay is a continuation of Joffrey, but. One of the things is that Asha, because she's a wildling, I think is overall rejected from the entire world. Like, most people don't, any of the houses, I think they see it as a violation to interact with any wildlings, and I think Jon Snow gets a brunt of that, but I think he makes a lot of connections with wildlings, including falling in love with one of them. Yeah. But I think he does make other sort of allyships with other people. And so to see Asha as someone who is helping someone else and seen as a friend, I think is really good. And it's, a lot of times you see people on the show, they'll be friends and then they betray you. Yeah. Here, hers was up front, and then she's like, okay, maybe I was wrong. Yeah. Yeah. And so then through that, how would you describe what Bran is?
So Bran, he essentially becomes a god.
Yes. That's okay. I was like, what's the language
I would say
you would use?
there's also like a process in doing that, because it's almost like he has to reject the human parts of himself and make that decision. Because at first he's like, am I going to be able to walk? Like whenever he goes to see the three-eyed raven, he said, am I going to be able to walk again?
Yeah.
And the response is no, but you'll be able to fly.
Yeah.
And so it's just like this. And whenever he reunites with his family too, he's just not the Bran that they knew, because he's not. He's embraced and evolved into this like higher being, this like all-seeing, mind controlling, like badass. That's just
Would you
and
say
kind of freaky, kind of scary,
it is
a little scary?
His eyes sort of like glaze over.
Yeah, I hate that.
It's kind of like, and you're like, no, that he is somewhere else, and it's like he can see things, but I also like he can make. Like, he makes Hodor do some things.
Right.
Like, because a lot of times he needs Hodor to make things happen physically because he can't.
Right.
And so one of the things that I think, it's not only are these an unlikely friendship because you have Asha, who's a wildling, then you have Hodor, who I think people might see him as mentally handicapped.
Right.
And it's because of a traumatic event, which is...
gosh.
Yeah.
So I would say probably the most heartbreaking moment on the show.
Yes.
I cried.
Yeah, like, I saw it online before I rewatched it, and so I knew it was kind of coming, but I didn't know everything, and then I was like, oh, God. No. But it's almost like... Because he can only say Hodor. So he's kind of like Groot in that sense from, like, Guardians of the Galaxy, where just everything he says, but is with different emotion and levels of volume and things like that. So there is some meaning behind it. And so I think people see him as, like, slow or dumb or something like that because he's only saying that. But I feel like only saying Hodor. But I feel like he is there for a reason. And I think that Asha and Hodor and then the other two people that they come into contact with and go on the journey together, they see Bran as becoming this godlike being as what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so they will also see it as their duty to make sure he gets to the three-eyed raven, make sure that these things happen and nothing happens to him, because people die and they will take their last breath for him. And so I think that there's a level of friendship, but then there's also like that loyalty of that's beyond friendship is this idea of duty. And I think that Hodor and Asha and the other two, I think, have a duty to Bran, but I don't think it's always one-sided, though. I think he cares about them, and I think he depends on them, and he knows that he does in both physical, mental, and emotional ways. And so it's an unlikely friendship because it's a really interesting crew of characters, but they need to make it happen, right? They need to get him over the wall.
Yeah.
Hodor. Which you might see, though, with the wildling, with Asha, is that there's an allyship. And I think, so that takes us out of loyalty, right? So loyalty is strong. And at the beginning, I said these relationships are rare, but at the same time, there's different kinds of them, right? Like, ones you expect to be friends. Friendships that sort of, penetrate all the different levels of hierarchy, and then ones that you wouldn't expect but end up being really important friendships. But I think that even though that's the case, that a lot of that is seen as secondary to so much more that's happening. And that actually the primary relationship that people probably have on the show is the second area, which is allies, because we're talking about the political fight, we're talking about war, like actual... the army, the soldiers coming, and that sort of thing. So I think allyships are extremely critical to anyone gaining the Iron Throne, right? You have to work with other people. And I think that is Cersei's downfall, which we'll talk about later. Because she doesn't want to have an alliance with anyone. So some of the alliances that we see, let's start with Sansa and Marjorie, because I think that's a little bit more uplifting. And then the next ones are a little bit more mentorships. And then we'll end with the one that I think might be a controversial friendship, a controversial alliance. So Now, I see, so Sansa is supposed to be married to Joffrey, remember, the worst tween that ever existed. And at first she has, like, that teen beat, big bopper crush on him. And then when she sees the evil, like, he just does things that are just evil, like hurting Micah or getting him killed and just being like, well, like, he's such a, like, he is literally a coward.
Sociopath of Westeros.
Yes, okay, here's the thing. If we lived in the world we live in now, and it was the 70s, he'd be one of those serial killers that we know very well, like a Bundy, a Dahmer.
Oh, yeah.
He will kill animals. He doesn't care about anyone. Right. He just wants to see people's head cut off for the fun of it. Like, you can see him enjoying it. And then we'll talk about Ramsay later, who just takes it to a whole nother level.
And they're not good at the political game either.
No,
Joffrey, he's dumb. He's not a good fighter. He doesn't play into all of that. It's just, here I have access to this power, and I didn't have to do anything to get here. I was just born into this.
And so I'll just do whatever the hell I want.
So I'm just going to kill people, and nobody can tell me no.
And the thing is, like, I realized, as you said, well, he wasn't really born into it because he is Cersei's and Jaime's son. But I think Jaime would make a way better king because even though he's an asshole at times, he was the Kingslayer, so he'll go into battle.
Right.
Like, he has that side of it. I think that after he met Brienne and Bronn, that he can do more of understanding other people and being able to negotiate and so on and so forth. But Joffrey just does things because he can, and just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
So Sansa is supposed to marry him, but then we have Marjorie, which is from your favorite house, the Tyrells.
Tyrell. I love House Tyrell. I would love to be a Tyrell. So Marjorie, that's really born out of, they wanted to unite their houses. So the Lannisters / Baratheon, not really, but the Lannisters and the Tyrells wanted to unite because they need the Tyrell house for food. Like, that's what they're getting. So they're getting resources from Tyrells. And Marjorie is just like this beauty from that kingdom. And so it's very attractive to Joffrey. So he's got this beautiful queen that he can marry, but also, and she knows how to play it too. What I appreciate from Marjorie is she's so smart. Yeah. And she plays into his terror of like him just being like, there's a scene with them together and he got like a new hunting bow. And she is like, can I go hunting with you sometime? And, so of course, like, he is all about that. Yeah. And like, oh, here's like my evil queen that matches my just like who he is. But she does know how to play it. But I think that the one true not friendship, but that alliance and more protection is for Sansa. And so whenever she gets to the realm, she makes a point to bring Sansa to the gardens to have a conversation and like tell me really what's going on with Joffrey. Yeah. And so she and her grandmother, Lady Olenna, really kind of take Sansa under their wing, and it's almost like an older sister relationship. Yeah. And at that time, Sansa really doesn't have anyone. Her father just died. Her sister, she thinks, is probably dead. Her mother died.
Rob's dead. Her older brother. She doesn't know what happened to John. She doesn't know what happened to Bran or the little one.
Yeah. Rickon.
What did I call Rick Ran? Rick ran. Should have ran a little bit differently when it got hit by a bow, but whatever.
And she really is almost the better version of, because at the beginning, like Cersei, she really looked up to Cersei, and it was the lady that, Lady Stark was at the north, and it wasn't this glamour of King's Landing that Sansa was so looked.
She's caught up in it.
She did.
Yeah, she's the celebrity of it, if you will.
She loved that, and so whenever she realized that Cersei was bad news and Joffrey, here comes this other lady from a different house who really embodies that as well. Yeah. But is kinder and gentler, and even says like we're sisters. We're gonna take care of each other. So I really like their friendship.
Yeah, and there was something like I first saw, like, I think when she first arrived, I think Sansa saw her as a little bit of competition in a way, but at the same time, like you mentioned to me off mic, that Sansa is relieved when Marjorie comes, because then she knows she doesn't have to marry. Yeah. I was about to say the man, the boy, the sociopath serial killer boy. Yeah. That killed her dad and set a lot of things in motion, at least from her point of view, but we'll get to the person who really set everything into motion when we get to toxic friendships.
Of course.
But I think that was a really change in their relationship, where I think that became an alliance, is that Sansa is what she wants to be Marjorie in a way and marry Joffrey, but she doesn't understand everything, whereas I think Marjorie understands what it means to be a queen and to unite the houses, and she has an agenda and she has some political savvy, and I think that in a lot of ways that she can, I don't want to say manipulate or control or sort of influence Joffrey, which I think Sansa's just rolled over by everyone. She's seen as weak, and because she doesn't have anyone, I think this is the first time like she has a true connection with anyone when she is in King's Landing, because what a lonely place to be locked up in.
Yeah.
And to have people who hate you and who killed your father. Right. And okay. Well, let's not get into it.
Took a turn.
Because you're House Tyrell. I am definitely a House Stark.
Yeah.
I have my little baby direwolf right here, although he's a cat, but it's fine. It's fine. We'll spray paint him white.
Yeah.
He's like not even cool. But he's a redhead like Sansa, so he belongs. So I think that is like sort of, they're not exactly friends, but I think Marjorie understands what she can do to help Sansa because it'll help the whole situation of bringing the Tyrells and the Lannisters together, which I think is sort of highlights mentorships. And so that leads into some other maybe more business-like, political-based relationships, like Dany and Marjorie's grandma, Olenna.
Lady Olenna.
Yeah.
First of all, Lady Olenna is definitely in my top 5 and has the most badass death.
Wow.
I saw an ad on Facebook of It Was Me, and it's like Lady Olenna with like shades on because she killed Joffrey. So obviously like MVP for that move. But she offers great mentorship to Dany, and and she is another like strong female leader and really believes in Dany. So they have a short amount of time together, but it's very critical at Dragonstone together. Yeah. And I think that Dany's had this hard journey of understanding leadership and understanding what it means to be a ruler and not loving everything that comes along with it, because you have to make some tough choices. So Lady Olenna really helps her navigate that and to really own and grow into being the queen. Yeah.
And I think, we had talked about Jaime Lannister really having a pretty profound change in his character. And now that you say that, Dany did too, because she was under her brother, her much older brother's thumb, forced into marriage. She didn't know how to be a ruler, and she had some great counsel herself, and those moments with Lady Olenna are probably really meaningful. But then you see her leading now, it's not the same person at all. And certainly she didn't have the 27 titles when she...
No, she didn't. It grows every season. There's another couple words added on.
Bless her heart, though, because it's like, listen, bend the knee, bitches, because I got 27 titles. And so another political mentorship is Stannis and the Onion Knight.
Yes.
That's
Sir
what
Davos.
Yes.
Love the Onion Knight. I really... Stannis, I hate.
Yeah, he's
not great. He's just so obsessed with the Red Woman and the god of the Lord of Light or whatever. Some bullshit. He's on some bullshit the whole time.
It's like he's really into horoscopes.
He is. He's just like out there, like,
I use horoscopes, but like he's to the point where it's just like, bro, you are going to ruin the world.
Burned your daughter at the stake because you thought it was going to give you power. Oh, I just rewatched the episode too, so it's fresh in my mind.
Can we remind people that his daughter was not an adult?
No.
She was like
a child.
9. Yeah. Right? And actually really... That's a friendship we didn't talk about. The Onion Knight and his daughter. Yeah. Oh my God. She taught him to read.
I know. That was, And I think the whole thing, 'cause that's a storyline that I kind of like, it's one of the storylines that I didn't really, it was kind of, like, oh, let's get through this. Like, I'm just kind of like, as I'm watching it, but I really appreciated the friendship between Stannis' daughter and the Onion Knight, and it was just so pure, and then he's heartbroken whenever he finds out what Stannis, who he's pledged his loyalty to Stannis throughout his knighthood, and at some points when Stannis is at his best, it's to the credit of of
he
the
does
Onion
everything.
Knight. Yeah.
He does everything.
So Sir Davos is really critical, I think, to the best parts of Stannis, but when he chooses to reject that friendship or alliance over the Red Woman, that's when he really meets his downfall, I would argue.
Yeah, and then he becomes loyal to Mr. Jon Snow.
Oh, yeah.
So
he does.
It's almost like that mentorship shifts because Stannis is, maybe it's like Joffrey, Ramsay, Stannis.
Yeah.
In terms of like an entire life of sociopaths in the realm.
Yeah.
Right? But I think like, yeah, you think burning your child at the stake is going to bring you power. And it's like, you've lost your fucking mind.
Yeah.
Right? And so the Onion Knight, I think, saw her more as a daughter than Stannis and his wife ever did. And I think that really just devastated him. And it was Brienne who got rid of Stannis, isn't it? Because she drops the mic on
another reason why we love her.
Yeah, she took care of that because who burns children at the stake? And like that was not a pretty episode. That is for sure. But I think that with these, and these are the primary alliances. There's one more that we'll talk about. It's a little bit controversial, but I like to point out that I think there's a lot of different mentorships. Like I think Tyrion as the hand of the queen to Dany, when Ned Stark was the hand of the king to Robert. I think those are positions that require a lot of trust and loyalty, but doesn't always work out for those involved. But I think you see a lot of negotiating happening where different houses are going to other houses to fight someone else. And then, as I mentioned before, that all the houses have to come together to convince Cersei that they have to fight these White Walkers, who she doesn't believe until the snow zombie's like right in front of her. And that shit's scary.
Yep.
They should have let it take her over.
Yep.
Well, maybe it's Joffrey, Ramsay, Cersei.
Right.
I don't know. It's like, I feel like we get the life of a terrible person.
Right.
Across all of them. But, okay, so my allyship, that might be a little controversial. I've thought this from the beginning. So when Haley was like, you should do Show and Friendship, I was like, these two are included. So Arya, when she leaves King's Landing, is on her journey. I mean, there's also like Gendry and some other people that she has connections to. But the Hound is someone that is associated with the Lannister family. And his brother, the Mountain, is the worst. There's a lot of people. Okay, not everyone can have the same title. Like, we might have to have, like, how many Joffreys is this guy? Or how many Ramsay torture sessions? Yeah, exactly. But the Mountain, when they were kids, the Hound was just, like, playing by the fire. And his brother, like, pushed him into the fire and half his face is burned. It's just like, what the...
Yeah.
Who does that to their brother, right? Like, awful. And so he's loyal to them, and he gets captured, and I don't remember the details, so you can add in here specifically, but somehow the Hound and Arya become a traveling buddy film.
Yeah. Well, eventually he's just like, screw that on the Lannisters, and it's like, I'm over it, and I'm in it for myself. So in his motivation in once he finds... crosses paths with Arya on the road, he captures her and he just wants to sell her to hit her aunt so he can get the money. Yeah. And so it's all about just his own self-motivation at that point because he has no loyalty to the Lannisters. Yeah.
He's like, F them, F my brother.
Yeah.
And I forgot about that part because it truly is like a buddy film. Like, I think that, well, first off, she hates him. She has the Hound on her death list, her kill list, and every night she can't go to bed until she lists everyone on the kill list, and it includes him.
And at one point, she's saying, like, because they're, like, falling asleep, and he's pissed because she's saying all these names over, and he was like, well, go ahead and finish, and then she finishes on the Hound.
She's like, I just have one more. The Hound.
He's like...
Try it. Yeah, like, this little girl's not gonna get me. And so they do a lot of traveling together, but I feel like even though he is annoyed with her and she wants to kill him and he's just trying to get money out of it, I still think that they're not exactly friends, but I think that they're protective of each other. Like,
yeah.
Because in the end goal, he does want the money. And, I mean, she's trying to stay alive so that she can kill him, that they do depend on each other.
Yeah.
But then Brienne shows up. Hello, Podrick. Hi there. And so they try to take Arya, and she basically drops him. And like, bye.
Right.
But Brienne and the Hound have a sword fight, and the Hound gets... After quite the battle between the two, he gets pushed off a cliff, and he's laying there, and they can't find Arya, and they're going off to find her, and she goes to talk to him and like see how he's doing, and he's like, I think he says something like, help me, and she's like, nope.
Yeah. Or she was like, you're gonna die, and he was like, well, unless you find a maester around here somewhere, it looks like it, but we never actually see him die.
But she just leaves him though.
Well, she steals his money first, and then she knows how to play it, so she steals his money, and then he asks her to kill him, and because he doesn't want to die this like slow, painful death.
And she's like, "Peace out, bro."
Yep.
Later days, loser.
But I think it also says something about their relationship, and to your point of that they really do care for each other. Is like maybe he was on her kill list, and she didn't have it in her to
do it.
Yeah.
And we don't see him die.
No.
And he does. When he came back, that was like a what moment for me.
Yeah.
Like I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, I almost want to have a flashback to, like, how he made it through. But then he sort of had some quiet time with, like, a village of people. He was helping them build, like, a church or some sort of building for them. And some jokers come through. Jokers is not the right term. Some awful people come through, and they kill everyone in the village when he's off doing something.
Yeah.
And so then he goes back out on the road, and he runs into some other bad people who are trying to kill those people.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to kill at least, can I get 2 of them out of the 3? They're like, no, you can have 1. So they're like negotiating who can kill who. Yeah, and then Arya goes on her way, and I think that had they stayed together, I don't know if Arya would have got her assassin training that she received.
No.
But at the same time, they might have been able to help each other a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I wonder what would have happened if he did try to sell her.
Well, it's like, where would you go at that point? Because he goes to they're outside of the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, mother and brother are dead. Can't sell her there.
Yeah.
Then goes, like, literally gets to the Bloody
Veil.
Gate at the Veil. Your aunt's dead. And then Arya just, like, starts laughing.
Yeah.
That's like,
so
you tried
funny.
this again. All right, where are we going to go now? So
Yeah, they have. So
no
it's almost
option.
like they had to split up to be able to take their own journeys, and maybe we'll see them come back together in season 8, because they weren't back together in season 7. I don't think she knows he's alive.
No, she doesn't.
So yeah, there are a lot of these relationships where it's almost like you have to make it work. It's almost forced to stay alive, or that there's these other agendas, but they still help each other out. There's still a level of protection. There's still some growth or mentorship or some other things that are happening. So we've been talking a long time about some friendships on Game of Thrones. Do you think that was going to happen, Haley?
No, but I am all about it. So
So we're actually going to stop here. We talked about loyal friendships, we talked about allies and alliances, and then we're going to go into toxic friends, lack of friendship, too much friendship, and then we're going to talk about our favorite characters and what we think are going to happen. But it's run so long that we need to do a 2-parter, and this is the first Best Forevers 2-parter. It's so exciting.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. I'm so excited. I'm just like...
I think it just really shows how obsessed we are with Game of Thrones.
True.
And that the show is so detailed and complicated, but rich with examples that it can go on and on and on. And I think we've planned it. It's organized. There's just a lot to deal with. And I don't want to deprive anyone of any friendship from Game of Thrones by cutting anything out.
Absolutely.
So, folks, if you like what you hear, you gotta be sure that you let us know. So we've talked about loyal friendships and alliances, and we're gonna get into some of the ugly friendships. But if you have any friendships you think we've missed in alliances or with loyalty, then please add us on Twitter. You can follow Best Forevers Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can email me on bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And Haley and I are going to come back together and talk about the friendships that you suggest, but also what actually happens in the end. and if friendship brought whoever, Jon Snow, to the Iron Throne, if friendship got them there.
Yes.
Sound good, Haley?
It sounds great. Can't wait.
Yes. Well, you don't have to wait very long because it's already happened. Okay. Yeah. So until next time, friends, really think about how loyalty makes a difference and how Game of Thrones can bring friends together, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Hey, we're Renee.
And Adrian.
And we are
The Outlandish Historians. We're sisters.
Nerds.
And lovers of all things history.
Except bell bottoms. Keep that in the past.
Come hang out with us on the Dear World of History podcast, where we'll frolic through time
as we chat and geek out over the good, the bad, and the downright ugly history of the world.
We promise you don't have to be a licensed historian to travel through time with us.
Maritime disasters?
Check.
Historical serial killers?
Check.
Glamorous and petty royals?
Check and check. You can find us almost anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter at Dear Historians and Instagram at Outlandish Historians.
So chug that drink me bottle and come on down the rabbit hole. It's going to be a wild ride.